Today, I just want to talk about my second pregnancy. So, I found out that I was pregnant early in November at exactly 4 weeks, which is really early to kind of find out, so I was really happy about that. And it was at a sort of rocky time in my life, but we had been trying to conceive, so learning that I was pregnant was happy news, even though things were kind of chaotic at the time. I was really thrilled to find out. And because I've been pregnant before, I knew what to do, so I started booking all the appointments and figuring out stuff with the midwife and doing all the stuff I had to do. I was already taking prenatals and things felt good. I was very anxious considering my first pregnancy. I had first trimester loss. I miscarried, to say the least, I guess. So it was really hard to have control over my own mind and my own emotions and feelings during this pregnancy, but it was something that I learned to do, which I'm so thankful for. And those appointments are just so stressful already, let alone letting the fears kind of overtake your brain, right? But I reminded myself that I made this choice to try again because I know I can handle it, and the reward outweighs the risk, really, at the end of the day. So I was able to find the strength to go through with all of these things. I mean, I didn't really have a choice. Obviously, I was going to go to my appointments and everything because I want my baby to be okay. But I also had to make sure that I was okay as well, which was a little trickier. But I managed. I did okay. I asked my doctor if I could go for extra blood work to monitor to make sure that things were going as they should because I was so anxious from what happened with my first pregnancy. I thought that that would bring me some peace of mind to make sure that I could monitor that things were still going okay, and it did a little bit. It really sucked to keep going in and getting jabbed with a needle and everything, but it was nice to see the number rising. And my doctor was pretty reassuring, saying that everything was looking okay and just to try and work on my own stress and my own feelings and all that. So a little later on in November, I ended up spotting, having some really, really light bleeding. And spotting itself isn't usually a big deal, but that's what happened with my first pregnancy. I had really light spotting, and then it didn't go to term, so I never had like a actual like heavy miscarriage type thing happen to me. With this pregnancy, I had that light spotting and I just freaked out immediately, pretty much, because I felt like everything was happening over again, and that was a horrible feeling, obviously. So after about a week of that spotting, I had went and I had gotten my blood work done, and it was still rising as it should. So there was a multitude of reasons why I could have had the spotting, as the blood HCG number was still rising, signifying that the baby was okay and still growing. So my doctor was still trying to be really reassuring to me through all of that, but because I had been spotting for over a week, I ended up going to the ER, the emergency room, just because I was really, really freaking out. I felt like something was not okay. I wanted to know why I was bleeding, and if everything is okay, why am I bleeding? And that ended up kind of being a waste of my time, unfortunately. They did, I think it was 2 urine samples, and they took my blood, so that was about it. I was there for like 7 hours or something crazy, and that was pretty much all that had been done. No one really talked to me. When I go to the ER, it's not like I expect it to be a good time or anything. I expected to be there a long time, just waiting and, getting passed around from the nurses and doing all the random tests and stuff like that. But I had been put in my own room and not checked on for like 4 hours out of that time. I had been checked on by one nurse in that time, and she didn't even scan my wristband or do anything really to like log who I was or anything. And like, so she checked my vitals but didn't like log it on my file, I guess. Like, I don't really know how it works, but I was feeling very left alone, like abandoned in this ER, in this hospital. And you know, I know that some people have bigger issues than me, but I would have liked to be updated or something on what was going on, because you know, after that point I was getting so anxious, just thinking like, did they somehow forget about me? Like, do they know that I'm here? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. And it was like 10:30 at night or something at that point, which might not be late for a lot of people. Usually I go to bed at like 8 p.m. though, okay? So I was so tired and so hungry, and I was like, I felt like I was gonna pass out. I was so dizzy. It was really, really horrible. And I was crying that most of that time too, because I was really stressed out and obviously upset about the reason that I was in the ER. But actually another lady who was at that hospital came in and checked on me and asked me if I was okay and gave me a hug and got me to stop crying. And she was really sweet. She shared her stories with me and tried to comfort me. And it was just really hard because I couldn't believe that a patient in the ER who was there for her own issue was in my room trying to make me feel better. And the nurses and the doctors just completely ignored me and like didn't talk to me or check on me or anything. So I ended up leaving before any results came through. I didn't end up doing any tests or anything to actually find out what was going on. I just left because no one was updating me, nothing was happening after 7 hours, so I left. And then, I think it was like the next day, I ended up going to my family doctor and just saying like, this is what happened. I ended up leaving early. But I was really hoping that she would be able to access the blood work that they did for me there, and thankfully she was. And that blood work still said that it was rising and things were okay. But at this point, I still wasn't figuring out why I was bleeding. So she was being very reassuring, and she was listing off a lot of the possibilities for why I could be bleeding, considering the blood HCG number was signifying that baby was still okay, and it had nothing to do with that. So then on December 1st, I got my last blood work done to make sure that things were still doing okay, and I said, okay, I'm not gonna do any more of the blood work, because I had been jabbed by like so many needles at this point in time, and if everything's telling me that things are going okay, I need to just accept that and stop driving myself crazy. So even though I was having that spotting this whole time, I really just tried to make myself not think about it, which is hard because it's a constant reminder, and it definitely triggered me back to my first pregnancy. So it was just really, really hard, but through that I learned kind of how to have mind over matter, I guess, and I was really able to try and enjoy my pregnancy after that and just focus on the fact that, you know, I did have a little baby in me and I was growing that and everything like that. So even though things didn't feel right, I tried to make things feel right, and I'm just really glad that I got to do that. I'm really happy that I was able to cherish some of that time. And then about halfway through December, I think I was around 7 weeks pregnant, I had scheduled the dating ultrasound. So the dating ultrasound is usually at 8 weeks, but it's really hard to schedule those. They're not open a lot of the time, and they get scheduled really quickly, so they just got me in when they could. So 7 weeks, and I was happy about that because I was like, oh good, I get to see my baby earlier. I don't have to wait a whole extra week. So that was exciting. It was very scary to go to that, but exciting. Because I knew I got to see my baby, and I was really hoping that they were going to tell me that everything was okay and everything was perfect and whatever. But that first ultrasound didn't go as I hoped. Of course, it would never, nothing ever does in life. You know how it goes. I did get to see my baby, but they said that it was measuring a little bit too small to do the dating, and they couldn't detect the heartbeat yet, so I had to reschedule the ultrasound. I had to go and get another one. So this was one of the scans from the first ultrasound, where they were trying to detect the heartbeat. So you can see the little baby there. It says fetal heart rate 77 bracket 2 beats per minute, so that was not enough to really like determine anything. So they said that everything was still looking like it should and all of that really, but I had to go in 2 weeks later just to check and make sure that everything was still progressing, just because it was a little bit early on to do that first ultrasound. So I was pretty happy to see my little baby on the scans, and even though it didn't really go as I wanted it to, I was still really just trying to make myself feel comforted, because I came to the realization that I will never feel comfort in this. You know, it's something that I will always worry and stress about, is if my baby is okay. That's even when they're born eventually, you know, I will always worry about that. So I was like, you know what, I have to learn to live with the worry and make the most of it more than anything, I guess. So from that first ultrasound, aside from it just being too early on, they also made note that the gestational sac was mildly flattened, and no one really told me anything about that. No one really said what that means, but it was in the notes, and you know, you're not really supposed to look up anything. You're just supposed to let your doctor tell you things. But that worried me also, just because it's not exactly a good sign. It's not something you want to have. You don't want to have it flattened. You want it to be nice and round and have a lot of space for baby. But because my doctor didn't bring it up to me and tell me that it was going to be an issue, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let myself think about that. I'm going to enjoy looking at the photos of my baby and just let myself be happy about that. So here's another photo. You can kind of see that it's more like ovally. It's supposed to be more round, I guess. But this one was when they were measuring to see how big it was, and it was supposed to measure at about 7 weeks at this point, and they were measuring at 6 weeks, 5 days. So it was like a little bit off with size, but that's why it's a dating ultrasound, is because that's how you find out the date of your baby and how far along it is and everything. But I was so happy to see that, and it was so small. So this photo is obviously very enlarged. My baby was about the size of a grain of rice. I think it was officially like 6 millimeters or something, so tiny. And it's just so crazy how much that little tiny thing just changes everything in your life, you know. I was sleeping like crazy. Like, I was so tired all the time, but I couldn't sleep. And God, I didn't want to eat anything. Like, I was so hungry, but everything was so gross. I had the worst aversions, and I actually did have some morning sickness as well. I threw up a couple times, which is weird to be happy about that. But it was really comforting, because I was like, that's my baby telling me that they're here and that they're doing okay, you know? So it was nice to have symptoms, and my boobs were so sore, and like, you know, all the fun stuff that just completely feels like you're losing your mind. The hormones are racing. And then it's just really crazy to think about that it's just a little tiny grain of rice sized baby causing all of that. But, you know, as hard as it is, it was a really hard time. This pregnancy was really hard to deal with all the symptoms and the emotions I was feeling and just everything. It was hard. But learning to appreciate it, even though it was hard, really was so important for me, and I'm glad that I got to go through it. But then, so for the next ultrasound, so after that first ultrasound, I really just tried to, again, keep myself calm and enjoy the pregnancy as much as I could. So then 2 weeks later, I had the other ultrasound that was hopefully going to confirm the proper dating, hopefully hear a really strong heartbeat and everything. But again, that didn't go according to plan. My baby hadn't grown since this first ultrasound, so it just stayed my little grain of rice sized baby. It didn't grow. And there was no heartbeat. So at that point, that's pretty much confirming a miscarriage because they should have been able to detect those things. So I had to go and get more blood work done after that to confirm that the blood HCG number wasn't rising anymore. They had to make sure it was dropping now at this point to confirm that it was not viable. It's a miscarriage. I don't really understand any of the medical aspects of anything. I'm still trying to learn my own body, for Christ's sake. But I had stopped spotting for a good chunk of time, and I thought that was a good sign, and my doctor also thought that was a good sign, because if I'm not bleeding, then that hopefully means that, like, you know, things sorted themselves out and things are okay. But then when I found out that it was a miscarriage and I wasn't bleeding anymore, I was kind of worried because I wasn't sure what my body was doing then at that point. So that was kind of a hard thing to deal with. So once everything was confirmed that it wasn't viable and it wasn't going to carry to term, I had to go to the hospital again and discuss my options, I guess, and what to do next. So my first pregnancy, I had to go through the D&C procedure, the surgical procedure, to remove everything, but thankfully this time I got to have an option and I didn't have to go through that again. But because I wasn't sure if I trusted my body to miscarry naturally, they told me it could take weeks and weeks and weeks, and because I hadn't been bleeding anymore, I didn't want to just leave that to happen. So at this hospital, they were able to give me the medication to miscarry at home, and they also had to give me a special shot because I have a special blood type, I guess. I'm Rh negative, and that means that if I'm sensitized to my baby's blood or something, that my body will just terminate immediately and things just won't work out, I guess. I really don't know everything. The doctors tell me that it's debated if the shot is even necessary in the first trimester, but I insisted on getting it anyway because I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd rather hopefully be able to carry a pregnancy to term and not continue having miscarriages. So I got that shot and that was smooth. It was good. When I had it the first time, they shoved it in my arm and it was a really big needle and it really hurt. But this time they were able to do it in my hip, so it was a lot better, I guess, as I didn't want to have to get it, but that's not my choice, really. I have to get it if I want to have a baby. So it was nice that they gave it to me in my hip. But then I had to get this medication to take home with me. So it's I kept the boxes because I don't really have much to keep from this pregnancy, so I keep my memories, I guess. I had to print out my own ultrasound photos because they don't do that, I guess, at ultrasound places anymore. I had to subscribe and I had to buy them online and print them out myself. So I did that, I guess, to have them, but I got the medication to take it home as well. So the first tablet you have to take 24 hours before the second tablets. The first one, it blocks all the pregnancy hormones from continuing, and then the second medication is what actually causes the cramping and the bleeding and all of that, and you pass the tissue. So that medication is actually the abortion pill, I guess, that is a topic of conversation, I guess, in the world, and it's controversial and whatever. But you know, my baby was already dead, so it helped me, I guess, and I do think that everyone deserves access to have safe miscarriages and safe abortions. I think that's a human right, a right that women should have for our own medical health and safety, especially now that I know that doctors really don't know all that much about women's health, especially during pregnancy and first trimester. It's a lot of just kind of clueless wait and see what happens and hope that things are good. I feel like a lot more research could be done, I think, for women's health and pregnant people's health. But thankfully, with this medication, I was able to go through this horrible process at home. And I was kind of joking about it, because you have to joke about it, otherwise you'll lose your mind. But I wanted to have a home birth anyway. I will say that taking that medication and everything, that whole process, it wasn't pleasant. I'm just glad that I got to do it in the comfort of my own home. And it was a really hard process, actually. I threw up 2 hours after taking that medication, the second one. And then I was a bit worried about that because I was like, I hope I didn't just throw up the medication. I hope it still does what it's meant to do, and it did. But that was just gross. I blew chunks, and thankfully my boyfriend was here to take care of me and make sure I was okay and everything. And then I passed a blood clot that was about this big, and that really, really felt horrific. I don't think I'll ever forget that feeling, and I wish I could. But, you know, it's part of it. That was probably the least expected part because, you know, the doctors say that it'll be like a heavy period and you'll have more extreme cramping and you'll have blood clots, but they don't really tell you that your blood clot can be the size of a clementine. So when that happened, I was pretty freaked out. But after that, most of the symptoms were okay. I had also been prescribed, pain medication and muscle relaxers and stuff, so that did help. I didn't need to take all of it. I was expecting to be really crampy and in pain for a couple days, but after the first day I was pretty much okay. It was really hard to have to wear a jumbo maxi pad though for the blood. During Christmas, really. So I had to take this medication on the 21st. So that was when I officially passed the miscarriage, was on the 21st of December. So it was really hard to just have that constant reminder in my underwear all through Christmas, sitting with my family, just that it was really hard. But I'm also thankful that I was able to spend time with my family and distract myself with happy things and do Christmas baking and stuff like that, despite everything else that was going on with me. And you know, I know it's a silly thing, but every year, because it was all during Christmas, every year me and my boyfriend buy a new special tradition ornament to add to our tree. And we had bought one for our first pregnancy as a reminder, and also for this pregnancy as well. I had gotten a little gingerbread ornament at the store. And I was still pregnant at that time, so I like to think that that was a really nice experience, and I like that I get to have that for the rest of my life. For all of my Christmases to come, I have those ornaments. I know that's kind of a silly thing, but I really don't have much to remember these pregnancies by, so I think it's important to be able to honor them in my own way. And that's why I wanted to make this video as well, because I think it's important to talk about it, as uncomfortable and upsetting as it is sometimes. But you know, that's my baby, and I'll always have love for that little rice that I had. There's probably so much that I could say or that I'm forgetting to say, and I'll probably kick myself about it afterwards, because I wish I could just get everything out and remember it with this video. But it's been hard. It's been a journey. With my first pregnancy, I announced it right away and I was so happy. And this one, I really wanted to do the same thing, but I was scared. So I kind of announced it in my month recap, but I was too scared to post a whole video announcing it. Because I was hoping that after the first ultrasound, I was gonna have this renewed confidence, and I was really hoping I was gonna announce it then. But then when the ultrasounds weren't going according to plan, I guess this video is just my entire second pregnancy experience. All of it. The announcement and the miscarriage announcement and the journey, and all of it in one, I guess. I have another doctor's appointment coming up, and hopefully I'll be able to talk to her about why this has happened to me twice now. But overall, I think I'm handling it okay. I'm obviously very devastated about this, but I learned from the first time that it's not the end of my world, as much as it might feel like it. I have to keep going and, be happy about stuff and find joy in even this pregnancy. When I was feeling like things weren't okay, I was still able to find joy and appreciate it. It just really sucks that this is the second time I've had to go through this, and it really sucks that this is the video that my baby gets in memory of them, I guess. I wish it was just a happy video, but there is happiness within the sadness. There always is. So yeah, I'm glad I printed off this little picture of my little blurry little thing. That's all I really got now. But that's more than I got with my first baby. I never got to see them on an ultrasound, so... So even though this baby stopped growing at around 7 weeks, I carried until
almost 11 weeks. It was 10 weeks in a couple days. And then I guess that was it. Hopefully I'll have the strength to try again, I guess, because I still really want a baby, but now I understand that it's not that simple, so my journey might look a little different than some people, most people, I don't know, but that's okay, because it's my journey, and I'll make the most of it. And hopefully someday I'll have a little baby with me to make the most of it with, you know, so. Thanks for watching, and thanks for celebrating my baby with me.